That's my spot. Today's event is one part innovation, one part pitch, and finally one part kind of a musical. And I say a musical because the pitchers are going to have to spend some time tap dancing to the refrain of the judges' questions. It's not going to be easy, so it should be a good show. And speaking of judges, let's get the introductions. Our first judge is no stranger to pitch events. He's our leader at AU and continues to be our go-to shark judge. In fact, we've called on him so much that he has almost as many stage appearances as Harry Potter has sequels. And as a matter of public record, his IRS Form 1099 lists shark judge as part-time employment. I present to you the Air University Commander and President, Lieutenant General James Hecker. General Hecker, welcome to the show. Glad you're here.
Good to be here. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Next is another man no stranger to leadership, fiscal stewardship, or innovation. He's a sharp-dressed man with a keen intellect and wit. If you ran into him on the street, you might look twice because he looks like NFL veteran Tiki Barber's doppelganger. This guy knows what it means to inspire organizations and teams to success off the gridiron. His current position as Senior Vice President with the Montgomery Area Chamber of Commerce allows him to work closely with the military and the communities, forming opportunities to collaborate and create value for all parties involved. I give you the co-star of today's Sharks, Brigadier General retired Trent Edwards. Hey, Trent, good to see you.
How you doing, Eric? Good to see you.
There you are. Awesome. You never disappoint.
Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. Finally, our third judge is new to the AU pitch stage, but a beast in the local business economy. She's a fellow California Bay Area native and escaped the West Coast 16 years ago to attend Alabama State University. She's called the tree shaker as she presents low-hanging fruit to her clients. That is theirs for the picking. Her company, JDB Hospitality, has mastered the art of social media promotion and using tech tools to include some of the old school's tools of networking. She increases customer traffic, keeps the phones ringing, puts money in the bank for her clients. She's our guest land shark today and our third judge. Welcome, Ashley Jernigan.
Hello, thank you so much.
You look really great, Ashley. Glad you're here today. Thank you for being with us. Okay, now I want to introduce to you one of America's Deans of Innovation, Dr. Jeff DeGraff. He's the professor of practice at the University of Michigan's Ross School of Business. He and his wife, Stany, are the founders of Innovatrium, which has partnered with their university to develop a program to teach innovation to airmen called Project Mercury. It invokes the spirit of some of our earliest innovators who ushered America into the space race in 1958. Dr. DeGraff is an in-demand professional speaker, author, and one of LinkedIn's top voices. As one of the founding executives at Domino's Pizza, Dr. DeGraff has been helping businesses ignite explosive growth while educating students to make a difference in the world for over 3 decades. He's a consultant to Fortune 500 companies and the cornerstone for innovative change in the United States Air Force. He's here today to add some additional expertise in support of our expert judging panel. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Dr. Jeff DeGraff. Dr. DeGraff, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Dr. DeGraff, before we get going, and we're going to do an in-depth interview, which we had talked about a little bit earlier. Do you want to say a few words to get this show going?
Yeah, just briefly. First, I want to thank General Hecker, General Edwards. I want to thank Ms. Jernigan for allowing me to participate, because today marks an important day for Cohort 2. It's the day in which they graduate. It's their certification, and it's their beginning journey as innovators. This is where it really starts. And I really want to thank our coaches. These are people who are graduates from the first cohort. They put in a lot of time, and it's a very important thing that we mentor each other, see one, do one, teach one, so we develop some amazing bench strength. I just want to say that I'm convinced that General Brown has it right. We have a window of opportunity for change, and it's really time to accelerate change and innovation. Otherwise, we're going to fall behind. And this is a nation that was built on innovation. I'm a man of a certain age, and I know this is in our bloodstream. And so efforts like Project Mercury are developing people who can respond with speed, synchronization, agility, and they can create the Air Force that we need. Most importantly, I'm sure we're all excited to see this work done, and I'm confident you'll be even more excited with what these people do with the next 100 projects, because that's why we're all here.
Outstanding. Thank you. Can you give us a Go Big Blue, by the way?
Go Blue.
There you go. All right. Well, perfect. Now that I've introduced our all-star lineup, I'm going to...
Hey, Eric, real quick, I don't know if everyone's getting this, but it's repeating, so we're hearing everything twice. I don't know if everyone needs to mute or what needs to happen.
Okay. All right. So everybody who's watching, please stand by for a second while we fix that. Thank you, General Hecker.
And I want to make sure it's not just me. Trent, are you hearing the same thing?
I am. I'm hearing the same thing now.
Okay.
So if I can get everybody to make sure that their speakers are, that their microphones are muted. Okay, everybody's got their microphones muted? Good. All right. The director's in the room. She's going to give me the cue. Sure. All right, so this is going to go ahead and be a test. General Hecker, if you would just give us the yes, it's good now or not. Do you hear me repeating?
Nope, it's still doing it. It's about a 10-second delay, and it repeats exactly what you say.
Okay. All right, so we're going to have to go to a break to fix that, because it's going to take a little bit of jury rigging to do that. Sorry about that. So we're going to go back to a break, and we'll be back in just a minute once we get this rectified. Thank you very much.
At MGM Works, our mission is to foster the collision of ideas between what the Air Force is working on with anyone with an idea that might be able to help the Air Force more rapidly work through the issues they have. For this venue we have today, we're doing a showcase of technologies to help answer a particular Air Force issue.
Today's technology showcase was great because we got to really see the art of the possible. We had 8 different vendors come to show us what they are capable of, which was fantastic. We didn't have any requirements built, and we really needed to see what was possible. So what we're looking for is a virtual environment where we can teach them all the fundamentals of how an Air Operations Center works and let them experience it firsthand in a very immersive environment.
Whatever the topic is, our mission in fostering that collision of ideas is to bring companies or individuals with the ideas and the technologies in to showcase them for the Air Force and other military customers.
What I expect to achieve during this sprint is to collaborate with MGM Works and Bespin and create a software that will give a team chief a streamlined checklist.
Our team chiefs get tasked with navigating 4 or 5 PDFs at once in order to find 250 steps out of 850 that they see.
These checklists are far too confusing, causing them to focus too much on sorting through the PDF checklist and not performing a safe and reliable load.
During this sprint, what I expect to achieve is to bring a design, an idea to Spark Tank, and it provides us with the support and the funding that we need to get this smart checklist into the hands of our airmen that need it.
If they can win funding there and greater sponsorship, that will drive the Air Force to bring it up in the priority list and bring the effectiveness of this checklist project to bear much quicker for the Air Force.
MGM Works give us all the tools necessary to make this project possible.
Our purpose in all of this is to make those connections, bring these folks together for the collaboration.
They gave us the teams that we could collaborate and create a product that we were really happy with. This technology is going to give the team chief the ability to enter his input conditions, and it will produce a streamlined checklist with only the applicable steps for that particular load. And weapons load crews are going to load aircraft 36% faster.
This benefits the overarching Air Force goals, which are to drive innovation, to cost effectively modernize, and ultimately to restore readiness in order to win any fight, anytime.
MGM Works is located in Montgomery because Air University is here, and it's vital to have these two organizations linked together to make sure that we bring every innovation that there is, and we find it wherever it is, and bring it to the Air Force.
We need to be innovative, and I think that word means something different to every commander.
The senior leader, 3-star general, says, this is what I want you to work on, and we don't come up with the ideas, we just help coach the students through that design thinking methodology. We have found that it's very useful to get them out of the classroom and off base to try to kind of unleash their creative juices and do some creative collaboration.
You're stepping into a civilian environment which allows you an opportunity to think a little bit differently and take away some of those traditional structures of the Air Force and the military.
As a subject matter expert, this definitely helps the Air Force have an open door to communicate with me. Getting in front of the right people and getting a lot of the minds together is really just a huge step in that direction.
It's a great opportunity for people that have ideas that need to be connected to other people with ideas.
The fact that they are creating partnerships and they're creating a broader interest in innovation in the area makes it a fantastic organization.
To have somebody like MGM Works just solely focused on finding that bright idea and getting it out to, whether it's the Air Force or maybe the DoD, to maybe something innovative, something maybe saving lives, reducing unnecessary resources.
Bringing those to the fore, letting people think about how they might be better implemented or be implemented to serve the warfighter and the broader Department of Defense.
And once you build that reputation for being a place where that kind of magic happens, I think that's the key to building the reputation. I think it's just going to grow organically over time.
At MGM Works, our mission is to foster the collision of ideas between what the Air Force is working on and with any source of ideas from outside the gate. And this coding sprint is about just that.
It's designed to deliver a list of the different events that are going on inside the local area to ensure that the military members are aware of all the activities that they can participate in and the things available for them inside the local community. The scope of the project was centered around deriving information from a variety of local websites and exposing it to an Air Force application that'll both benefit the users that are reaching the system to find out about these events, as well as the local businesses that are hosting these events. The team's been able to accomplish that in the course of this event.
Thank you for being out here tonight. I appreciate y'all coming out and staying with us. We brought in several different topics. We wanted to make them diverse, highlight the Air University research and some of the very interesting issues that the Air Force is going after. MGM Works is about the collision of ideas. We hope we brought some ideas together to get you to think about the relevant things for our national security.
And the winner is going to go to Alex Chris, the tail.
So from Agent Chris's program, we were able to secure $1.5 million. So I just wanted to say congratulations. But that kind of shows you what a pitch night is all about.
Okay, it looks like we're bringing everybody back. General Hecker will be up in just a second. All right. Hey, you know, at Air University, we're not afraid to fail fast. Sometimes we make, there's errors, but that's okay, because when you make those errors in the beginning, it makes your product better at the end. Do you agree with that, Dr. DeGraff? Excellent. So thank you very much, everybody who's watching, for enduring that, and we hope that you learned a lot by watching our videos too, because those are pretty cool. Okay, so we're moving on now. Now that I've introduced our all-star lineup, I'm going to share with you the very brief rules of the show. Each team will have 15 minutes to pitch their innovations to the Sharks. Afterwards, the judges will have 15 minutes to ask questions of the team. And following the 3 presentations, the judges will briefly retire for up to about 10 minutes in their chamber before announcing the Project Mercury Pitch Day winner. But before I introduce you to our first pitchers, I want to tell you about one of the heroic space travelers who paved the way for the 7 Mercury astronauts. Our warrior was born in French Cameroon, but relocated to Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico to the Aerospace Medical Center for training when he was selected for space travel. I doubt you know him, as he was given the code name of number 65, very secretive. But his first flight, before his first flight, and he was only renamed upon his successful return to Earth. His mission was to fly suborbital flights, and on January 31st, 61, aboard the Mercury Redstone 2, he took that flight. Sadly, the mission had its problems, and his capsule suffered partial loss during the flight. But the spacesuit prevented him from suffering harm. His flight lasted 16 minutes and 39 seconds and paved the way for Alan Shepard's historic flight less than 5 months later in the Freedom 7. I present to you one of NASA's original astronauts, number 65. His name is Ham, named after the Holloman Aerospace Medical Center. That's awesome. He's so cute. All right, enough of the monkey business. Now on to Project Mercury pitch teams. Our first pitcher comes to us from ACSC, representing the A team, and is Lieutenant Colonel Jason Newcomer. And he'll brief us on linking AU research to Air Force strategic challenges. Come on in, Lieutenant Colonel Newcomer.
All right, audio check good?
Audio good.
Perfect, thank you. I appreciate everybody having me here. Thank you, General Hecker, good to see you again. Sir, General Edwards, good to see you. Ms. Jernigan, good to meet you. And thanks to the MGM Work team for having us in. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Jason Newcomer from the Air Command and Staff College. With me on stage today is Lieutenant Colonel Dev Costal from the U.S. Air Force Academy. Backstage, we have other teammates, Captain Brandon Ricks from the Officer Training School, and Dr. Liz Woodworth from the Air War College. And today we're going to talk to you about Air University products meeting Air Force priorities. As the first team up, we were charged with the quick overview of Project Mercury and the competing values framework. That way you can put reference to all the briefings that you're going to see today. So real quick snapshot of Project Mercury. It was a 2-year, $1.2 million contract working with Jeff DeGraff and Innovatrium to train 150 Air University innovators as its primary goal. Because part of the program actually uses real-world problems to train the innovators, we have a secondary benefit out of Project Mercury that we can use Air University problems that were nominated by the different school leaders in order to address those problems during their certification process. So the competing values framework is exactly what it sounds like. We look at 4 different worldviews here, and 2 of them, there's 2 sets of competing worldviews. You have folks like me who are Reds, who are engineers. So I'm a very, and Jeff DeGraff, he's laughing because he always makes fun of me for being a Red. So I'm a very process-oriented, structure, optimization, rule-following kind of guy, and that's the Reds. And my nemesis, who are the Greens, like Lieutenant Colonel Brandy Jeffries, who's out there watching, but she's not able to be with us today. She's a big Green. She's one of those bright idea people like, hey, let's just do this, and very visionary and energetic with that. And they drive the Reds insane because the Reds like that structure, that control, that slowness. And the Greens just like the high risk and the let's just get after it. And so that's where that magnitude competing value comes in. And then you have the blue athletes, and that's like my boss, Bill DeMarco. He's a blue. It's like a bull in a china closet. You just drop him in, and he'll just destroy everything along the way because they're goal-focused, goal-oriented. They want to get the mission done. We'll pick up the pieces later. And their nemesis, the yellows, those are the other people, the connecting people. Those are the people who like connection, who like harmony, who focus on training and team building. And so as you imagine a problem and innovation going through a life cycle, what you'll see is that it'll typically start out as a green idea, something visionary and bright, and then you need somebody blue to take that idea and give it momentum and get it going. Once you have the idea going, you bring along a yellow, and the yellows will usually ingrain the idea and socialize it and give it roots. And then somebody like me comes along at the end and says, wait, we need to make this sustainable. So we need to create processes and rules and standardize this. And once we get it going, it's nice and stagnant because of the Reds. Then we need another green to come in again and jumpstart another idea or re-innovate that idea. So by putting all 4 of these people on the same team, you really get that competing value, that what Jeff DeGraff calls constructive conflict, that allows us to capitalize on each other's strengths as they are different from one another. And so as we go through this briefing, you're going to see something like this, where you see a black background, which was deliberate because we wanted to use colors to highlight the red, the yellow, the blue, and the green attributes of not only our problem statement, but also some of the solutions that we've proposed in this presentation. So without further ado, the School of Events, Air and Space Studies presented this challenge statement to us. They wanted to link Air University intellectual work to U.S. Air Force key challenges. Now, as we took that problem and pulled it out, we really wanted to extract all the different red, green, blue, and yellow elements of that. So what we're really saying is we have to do a green thing and create something. We have to do a red thing, and that something is going to probably be a program, system, or process that can push and pull to the yellow aspect, which are the stakeholders, so that they can do the blue thing. They can do something with it. They can expand on it, revise it, or apply this intellectual work that we're pushing out of AU. So that's the revised challenge statement that we took from SAS and redid that. And that was the foundation for us going about our problem. Wanted to put the bottom line up front and talk about the lessons learned, because this was really one of those valuable things to the team and I, is when we first got into this, because we're all educators, we're extremely passionate about this problem. Because this challenge statement, to be able to have some value out of our work and the work of our students and get that out to stakeholders, because we do a lot of great work here and there's a lot of stakeholders that could benefit, but the connection just isn't there. We were really connected to that problem. As we did our empathy research and connected with the staff and connected with people at AU and dug a little bit deeper into this, we realized, wow, there is no golden solution to this problem. This is a wicked problem. It's huge, it's complex, it's the elephant. And so we had to break the elephant up into body parts so we could eat that elephant one bite at a time, as the metaphor goes. So here's some of the elephant bites that we took, and I'm not going to read these all to you. You don't need to look at all these. It's really just to give you an idea of how we went through our process. We basically organized things into small wins, big wins, things that are a waste of time and things that are going to be long-term projects. And we took some of the bigger pieces of these and we brought them to a briefing for you to present. As we did that, as we broke apart this problem, this logic map is what we came up with to really highlight how complex this problem is. It wasn't simple at all. We have the Air Force, we have the Air Staff, and then we have the higher level and lower level stakeholders. And there's different elements of this problem that have to be addressed in order to really connect Air University intellectual knowledge to the Air Force. So what we're going to do is we're going to go counterclockwise across this logic diagram, starting with some of the Air Force priorities, move on to the students and some things we can do there, the faculty and some things we can do there, and then circle back to what we feel is one of the bigger problems, which is a marketing and advertising piece for Air University. So we look at strategic problems. One of the things we can do to fix this from a strategic place is you start with the end in mind. Whenever we think about a strategic planning cycle or anything, we always start with our goals up front. But when our students apply for PME, for IDE or SDE, we don't have them start with the goals up front. We take the best of the best, we evaluate the records and send them through school. But one thing we can do is modeled off the advanced academic degree program is we can have them put a thesis or a topic submission as part of their IDE application. And those theses or topics can come from MAGCOM or COCOM sponsored problems. That way, when we say we're going to fund this student to spend 10 months at Air War College or Air Command and Staff College or SAS, we are selecting them and they're coming in knowing that they're going to address an Air Force strategic issue. So we walk in with that as part of the in-processing, and then when they leave, they have a paper that people can already be waiting to receive. Another option that we have, which we already do somewhat with the Research Task Force, is expand on programs like the Research Task Force. The Research Task Force here at Air University are extremely successful because they have MAGCOMs that sponsor them. In fact, Project Mercury is one of the byproducts of the Innovation Research Task Force, where AFWorks looked at what we were doing. They sponsored a $200,000 contract for Air University to run some students and faculty through an innovation project. And so we get to see some output from that. And one of those things, like I said, a byproduct is Project Mercury. And so there's other research task force for resiliency, for nuclear deterrence. And out of all those projects, the MAGCOMs that support and fund those task force are able to get products that directly relate to their issues. So more things like that. Another option is to get the students engaged and connect them with some of the strategic problems is let's have some video pitches for some more of our millennial students. When you think about things, our students right now, they're millennials. I'm the very first year of millennials, so I'm guilty as charged. My attention span's about to run out actually on my own briefing. And so what we really need are some of those short, easy to receive pitches. So we did an example here of how AU could pitch to the staff that we want you to give us work. And the staff could give us similar pitches to pitch whatever sort of problem they have in 30 seconds to capture the attention of our students.
Today, where the Wright brothers established their first flying school, Air University does research for the future. At its many institutions and colleges, airmen and joint partners study air power, space power, and great power competition. We produce research in ISR, cyber, deterrence, innovation, VR, and AR. In 1949, General Henry Hap Arnold said, "We must think in terms of tomorrow." At Air University, we're doing just that today for all our tomorrows. When the world needs us, here we are. You have research questions, we have answers. Air University.
There it is, folks. Doesn't it make you want to give Air University one of your problems or all of them? So that's kind of what we're looking for, is something from the staff on that. So we'll circle down to some things that would help our students connect their student work with the strategic issues. Here we can redesign their university website, and I can have you read all these words on the screen, or I could just give you a run through. So I want to give you a run through. Here's the Air University website. When you go there, you click research, pretty intuitive. If you're pretty good, you can figure out to go to the library to get some student work that might connect to your problem on the staff. Then you come to a page that looks like this. And after searching all the obvious solutions and trying to search in the word search, you actually don't find what you need. And you realize that it's actually under research tools, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but okay, we eventually found it. So here we are, student papers, but it's behind a .mil firewall. Man, that's inconvenient. So, well, and then when you finally do switch over to your government computer and log on there, then you get a screen that looks like this. Some ever-loading screen of death that doesn't always work because of the way the military firewall is. So what we propose is something more streamlined, easier to connect, So when a stakeholder comes to the Air University website, they can quickly find student work and connect it to their problems. You go to the Air University website, you click on research, and right when you do a drop down, the second item right under the library is AU generated products. As a stakeholder, that's pretty simple to get to that point. I click AU generated products. I come to a screen that looks something like this, where I can see my problems organized by MAGCOM, geographic area, subject, or whatever other nomenclatures we decide to break these things out with. We get to a screen like this, same subject areas on the side to organize. And if for some reason there is a student paper that's for official use only or some other classification, then we can do that here. We can tell the reader that the paper exists, but you need to get behind a special firewall to see it instead of holding people up with that step at the beginning. So that's one way that we can modernize and better connect student work with the stakeholders. So moving on to faculty, there's a few things that we can do here with faculty. One of them is we can align the course prompts and the research prompts with strategic, operational, and tactical issues. So the reason we use all three of those is because we have different levels of schools. So perhaps the NCO Academy and the Squadron Officer School can focus on tactical issues that address problems in the squadron. And then you can look at the operational and strategic stuff focused at Air Command and Staff College, SAS, Air War College, and Senior NCO Academy. But here we're really talking about, as you go through these programs, there are different assignments that instructors use to give students learning outcomes or to achieve learning outcomes. Some of them are joint mandated and some are internally developed. As we develop these learning outcomes, why not connect them with current and existing problems? That way the students are naturally preparing work that may be useful to our strategic leaders. And at the very least, the students are practicing using real world issues that they're going to deal with when they get out of school. Another thing we can do, because we have all this great work that's done at Air University and we just don't always get it out there, is we can have an Air University Research Symposium. And this is really a combination of internal motivation and external marketing and advertising as well, where we can invite and fund stakeholders to come to our research symposium from the different staffs so they can see the kind of work that we have, and they can take that work and those ideas and take it with them and even give us more ideas on more work we can produce for them. Finally, we want to go into the marketing problem that we have here at Air University. And I'm not going to read all these bullets to you, but overall, it's not a problem of do we produce great work. Our students are producing fantastic work. Really, the issue is doing things like what the former Chief of Staff, General Goldfein, did with wing commanders. He mandated that wing commanders come through Maxwell as part of the wing command tour so they know what we have to offer. So they know that Air University has these things they can offer to their wing. Why aren't we doing that with the staffs? Why aren't we bringing the J directors and the A directors at the different staffs or their main AOs, the division chief, the colonels that are working their issues through Air University so they can see what we can provide, they can see what research task force look like, and then so we're doing a push and pull to get this information out and around the Air Force at the level where we want to provide that impact. And that's a good transition to the overall summary slide here. Overall, folks, we don't think that Air University has a capability problem when it comes to connecting our intellectual work with the greater Air Force. We think that it's a marketing, advertising, and a process problem. Because we already have the resources in place, we need to do a better job at outreach and connecting these problems with the people that can, or connecting this work with the people that can use it. And we need to take the processes that already exist, like the library research system, the IDE process, and we can modernize those processes to directly connect strategic issues on the front end. That way you get it as a byproduct by default on the back end. So General Hecker, sir, this is our pitch to you. This is our ask for you. We have 4 asks. One, that the research coordinators at LeMay Center, we ask that we expand, and they're going to need more people for that, sir. It's 2 people. They just don't have enough bandwidth to do this. But we need to expand the research task force and programs like that to connect with outside stakeholders and let them fund our work that we're doing here to produce work that solves their problems. We also look to your A6 folks to redesign and re-engineer that website the way we showed the prototype to you earlier. We're looking for some teamwork between the AUPA folks and the LeMay Center research coordinators to conduct a multifaceted marketing campaign, as we talked about in the previous slide. And then for you, sir, as their university commander, to direct prototype teams at some of the different schools, maybe a flight or 2 or a course or 2 at each school, to start aligning coursework with higher level objectives and see how that works with connecting the output to the input that we pre-design into the work. And that's all I have at that point, sir. I'm going to welcome my comrade in arms, Lieutenant Colonel Dev Costal, to the stage to join me for any question and answers that we can dodge for you.
All right, thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. I thought it was a great presentation against a great problem. You know, I think about it quite a bit. We do so many student papers, we do so much work here, but I don't think that really anyone gets it and reads it. You know, there's not a whole lot that's going on. We have some MAGCOMs that realize what we bring, and they'll ask us to do something. Matter of fact, the half A3 had a project. We gave it over to Ward College, and he sent me a 2-page thank you letter saying how great that they helped him out and those kind of things. So I think this is a real need here. And as you went through the website there, obviously that's not the answer. You know, what you design there, I think is going to be a lot better. Hey, when you were researching this, what was your sense from people out in the field and on the staff? Did you get a sense that they don't know this is available as a resource, or they didn't like the product, so they didn't ask us to do it?
So the predominant answers that we had, and Dev, I don't know if you want to dive into this a little. Actually, I'll let you take that, Dev. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. Sir, thanks very much for having us. And if I can take 1 second and say thanks from the Air Force Academy for including us in this program. It's been fantastic. We've got a couple folks from here that are also involved. To answer your question, sir, I think the predominant reality is that people on the air staff feel like, and the perception is that they're moving too fast to wait for academic products. So I think there is a definite perception that they need to have a delay before they get an answer. And to your point, what you just said is that the MAGCOMs don't realize what Air University brings and what is already being produced, which is, I think Jason highlighted that perfectly on the conclusion slide. It's the marketing, is the push of those products up to the consumers, the MAGCOMs, the COCOMs, the air staff, that we are answering your questions already. It's just really difficult to find.
No, that makes sense. And I think the marketing's a big thing. As far as timing, we're not going to be able to turn something in a day like sometimes the staffs need, but that's not what we're going to market. We're going to market, looking at something a little bit deeper, more intellectual study, and we'll obviously have to get that in advance. So we got to make sure that when we market this, that we're asking for the right kind of problems to give us. They can't say, hey, Iran just took out the Saudi oil tankers. What should we do? And the president needs an answer in an hour. That's not going to work, right? So we got to make sure we market that right. Did you guys have a chance to, on the end slide there with the research coordinators, the A6, PA, did you talk to them at all about this, or was this just kind of internal to y'all?
So those pieces were internal to us. We had the research coordinators tied in along the term of our project, and we got information from how many there are and what type of work they're doing and what the workload is like. But as far as the solutions, we did not pregame the solutions with them.
Okay. No, great. Well done. And I'll pass it off to Ashley.
Hey, thank you. Coming from a marketing perspective, I totally understand that is a big portion of the battle, right? Is people actually knowing the services that you can offer. So that I could definitely see how that can be an area. Now, putting together that plan, do you already have in mind the time it's going to take to make this happen? Website redesigns can be extremely complex or very simple depending on the back end. But do you all already know that? How long it'll take to kind of get the process going and be not necessarily finished, because marketing is never ending, right? But I heard you're saying to expand a team as well. So that's a permanent team that you're expanding.
So ma'am, to provide some more clarity, the website, it's really cutting out some links. So it should be a relatively quick fix minus the admin stuff that we have to do on the front end to get something contracted and approved to do that. But as far as developing a comprehensive marketing plan, we have not done that. That is going to be some work. And we'd be happy to work with PA and the research coordinators to do that as well. And then I think, what was the third piece of your answer? I just forgot the third part of your question. I'm sorry.
Well, you kind of answered both of them at once. Yeah, it was just the timing. And if you thought about that, since you have to build it, so they're needing to bring, so you have to bring some more people onto the team. and then be able to create. So you don't really technically won't have the timing until you know
Yes, ma'am.
who's
And
all
as far
available
as
to
those
work on
teams
it.
we're
I'm
talking
assuming.
about putting together, those will be short-term prototype teams to run through either a class, which sometimes is a few weeks in the case of SOS, Squadron Officer School, or it's 10 months in the case of some of the bigger schools. You'd run that through that whole term to see how those things work, and then we get that feedback.
Ma'am, just to answer that question also, I think that one of the benefits you get by those prototype teams at different schools is that difference in length. And so if we're able to get some initial feedback from the Squadron Officer School short courses, we can actually feed that and kind of redirect some of the longer courses as well over the course of the year.
Okay.
Hey, Trent, what you got?
That's just for me.
All right. Jason, Dev, great job. I thought you guys did a fantastic job on the presentation. Thank you for teeing us up with some of the background on the blue and the green and the yellow. That was very, very helpful. So thank you very much. I love that you started with the bottom line up front. It kind of set the tone, and I think I was able to really kind of follow you guys very closely. Love that you talked up front about no golden solution, which to me said you guys were really going to be realistic about what you needed to do and then break that elephant down and eat it one chunk at a time. So I thought your solution sets were very, very well done. I love the idea of submitting the thesis at the front end. Recall, Air War College, and about halfway through, I started to think about what I wanted to talk about, write about. It would have been great on the front end to tie the thesis, something that I was passionate about, with something that the MatchCom was also interested in. And then that allows you to look at a wide variety of issues because the MatchCom will have their particular interests, whether it's Air Education and Training Command or Mobility Command or ACC. I just think that's a fantastic job. So very well done there. I love the idea of the website or the video, something to get us interested, right? It's about being connected to something bigger than yourself, and you can do that visually. So well done there. Here's my two questions. When you look at, you said faculty improvements, and you talked about tactical, operational, strategic, and connecting learning to outcomes to current existing problems. Sometimes we think kind of just about the Air Force, and now we have the Space Force. We've got multi-domain operations. What are your thoughts on how you would bring that into the conversation in terms of a thesis or an area to study? Over.
Deb, do you want to take a shot at that? I have a response.
Sir, I'll touch that real quick, and then I'll let Jason take the rest. But I think the answer is the schools themselves can determine where they want their students to focus. And so, if we're looking at the small piece of energizing classes towards a particular topic, if I'm doing a class on Indo-PACOM issues, then I can look at very tactical level Indo-PACOM issues or very strategic level. When you're talking about theses, again, I think that would be dependent on the school. So if I'm going to Air Command and Staff College, we would engage the Air Command and Staff College leadership on where they want that level of focus. Jason?
Yep. And sir, I was going to say something similar. The programs by design lead students towards certain topics. So as we're connecting those assignments, for example, we're in the leadership course. I'm in the Department of Leadership, as indicated by my pride on the wall. But in leadership, one of the things we're focused now is great power competition leadership. So what does that mean? So what we can do in our department, for example, is we can directly incorporate problem sets that tie to great power competition between China and Russia into our curriculum. And we can build that as soon as we finish educating or executing this course, we can build that right into next year's course. So by design, the students that come through will get the leadership focus on those areas. Now, the other courses, the air power courses and the international security study courses, they can focus on those areas as it pertains to their courses from a political science or historical standpoint. And so a lot of the courses can focus just by nature on what their topic area is. We have a whole MDOS program, which now I think is called JADS, and they focus on joint all-domain. They're joint all-domain strategists, so they can focus on the MDO stuff you were talking about, sir. And so that can be built, those prompts can be built into that program.
Awesome, guys. Just two more questions then. So on that note, like how do we then pitch this to our sister services so that they have an opportunity to do the same thing on the front end. Over.
That's a good question, sir. I'm not sure of a solution that to connect it from a joint perspective. Our thought process is we're looking at our Air Force systems and our Air Force application processes for PME. So we'd have to dig a little deeper into the sister services and how they do that to find a better way to connect and make that synergistic across all 4 services, or 5, 6 now.
If I'm a Navy person coming to Air War College, will I have how do I have an opportunity to do what the Air Force guys are doing in terms of a thesis?
Yes, sir. That's a problem that we'd have to research. That I don't have an answer to that right now. But that's a good. We didn't think about that, so that's extremely helpful for you to bring that up for us.
Awesome,
sir.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, sir. I was just going to say I think this is a great example of how this process is successful. We've tried to focus at the smallest level possible, and as we build the prototype solutions, we incorporate all of those other feedback items that are designed to expand that. And how do we implement that at a small level and make it fast and fail fast? And then how do we build it out and make it bigger and better?
Awesome. The last question is, any thoughts on cost? How much do you think this might cost?
We're both hedging, sir.
No worries, no worries. As a comptroller, I would tell you, always be prepared to ask for money and know how much money you want to ask for.
So, yes, sir. I guess what I'd like to focus on is on the slides, we tried to be very clear that the vast majority of these were going to be low cost or no cost.
Right.
Obviously, you can throw money at a problem and try and come up with solutions, but we deliberately tried to avoid those high cost items. I think if I can go back to a point that you made early on when you started, you mentioned something that highlighted to me the whole honesty and advertising piece. And up front, we wanted to say we didn't solve this problem. We did not make it all the way through this process. And the benefit of this program has been that's the benefit, is that you're never going to end at this process. By coming back to this, we didn't get to the cost. That's just us being honest with you. Because we were focused on trying to come up with the right prototypes, and we just didn't get there.
Okay, so I have to interrupt because time is up, A-Team. What a great job, Jeff. I'm sorry we didn't get to you on questions, but I know you know it all anyway, so that's all good. Hey, Tiki, just to let you know that those millennials, they may not really know what AM radio is, but your voice was sounding like AM radio for a while there, so we're going to make sure we can get your sound wall worked out. So be looking maybe for some help from the back end on your chats or something like that, okay? Because there's a little sound problem. Okay, with that said, judges, we're going to go ahead and move into the next group. And so our second group, it's so funny that they're ready to go on stage, and our second picture is all about disruptive ideas, just like the last one. And I'd like to introduce Major Brian Ragin Ralstorm from SOS representing Team JADO. So come on in, Major Ralston.
Yeah, hi. Major Brian Ralston, as introduced. I'm a AU Fellow A, teaching at SOS this year, and then I'll attend ACST next year. I'm joined here by Major Maria Blossom Downing over at the LeMay Center. Backstage, we have Major Adam Miles teaching over at ACSC, and Lieutenant Colonel David Sugar Lyle, the AU liaison to NCR. We are JADO Fellows, Education for the Future. So what are the 3 things that you need to know? If I can get the slides to advance here. There we go. So first, JADO, Joint All-Domain Operations, is a very confusing concept. It's had a history of a very wide variety of acronyms. It's known by NCW, Net-Centric Warfare, Effects-Based Air Operations, Multi-Domain Operations, just a multitude of confusing acronym soup that has complicated our problem. Speaking of problem, the original problem statement we were given treated the symptoms and not the problem. It was looking at creating faster doctrine evolution, but without looking at the education portion. So that's where we tackled. Educating the future leaders of today to move joint all-domain operations from a concept to an operational reality. Now, for the Air Force people in the room, you all know that JADO is important. It was David Goldfein's third priority and is now General Brown's #1 priority. I have a couple quotes here. A great one from General Goldfein at last year's AFA, talking about how we need to produce multiple dilemmas to overwhelm our adversaries. You have General Holmes, the commander of ACC here, talking about how we need to break down the silos of excellence across the services and command and control and have one coherent thought so we can overwhelm the enemy. And finally, General Brown talking about how we need to have our commanders with conditions-based authorities with clear moments of C2, all underpinned by his recent white paper, Accelerate Change or Lose. So let's step back and think about the story of crew resource management here. Now, on the left, we have a picture of Eastern Airlines Flight 401, December 29th, 1972, fortunately on its way from New York to Miami. It had a controlled flight into terrain incident as it was approaching Miami to the Florida Everglades. This was due to a pilot error, loss of situational awareness, and resulted in 101 fatalities. The crash all occurred because the entire cockpit crew was preoccupied with a burnt out landing gear light. Because of this, the FAA and the Air Force had adopted this concept called crew resource management, which is now second nature to all aircrew working together to accomplish the mission. So now let's hypothetically fast forward 10 years into the future. The year's 2030, we're at the cusp of a great power conflict, and our nation's defense forces are latched onto a developing terrorist threat in our overseas bases. We've dedicated a tremendous amount of resources to find and dismantle the threat. And just when we're about to take down the entire terrorist cell, we find out that there was a diversion. The real threat is a bunch of Russia and Chinese special forces who have infiltrated our power generation nodes and are about to take down the entire nation. Pretty scary stuff. What we've done is created a proposal that creates a specialized cadre that knows not to latch on to the threat that's right in front of you, the light bulb in the case of the CRM incident, but work together to anticipate and counter the threats, the ground. Much like the CRM instructors of yesteryear, our JADO fellows will continue to educate the future, creating a joint force that briefs JADO as standard. So what is AU doing now? Well, they're doing a lot of JADO awareness education, but not really doing a ton of deep diving, except in the Joint All-Domain Strategist program that was mentioned before at ACSC. They're doing a lot of scholarship, writing articles, and also the LeMay Center, which is creating doctrines, is housed under Air University. So through the Project Mercury program, we created a JADO fellowship, creating all domain leaders who are primed for the future today. Now, General Hecker, this is your lines of effort here for how we're going to educate Air University on JADO. There's 4 lines of effort here. Our solution touches all of them. And it also looks at the potentially missing background of education and expanding the network to bridge the gap between the lines of effort. So our solution is a JADO fellow. The fellowship looks a lot like a AU Fellow B that's already in place, where a student goes to ACSC and then teaches at ACSC their following year. The student would participate in the Joint All-Domain Strategist program that Dr. Riley runs at ACSC, and then follow that with an instructor year. But the kicker is they're going to have a guaranteed follow-on to a high-profile staff assignment, which we're using as Air Force Futures or Air Force Warfighter Integration Capability as a starting point. This is very similar in nature to the CAF and MAF Advanced Assignment Program that's already in place. But selected students know where they're going to be for the next 5 years, and adding predictability, stability, and attractability to this program. Now, while they're students and instructors, they're able to assist with AU taskers from the field that General Hucker mentioned before. The annual JADO conference that's going to get started up here in a couple months, and create a network of leaders. Now, I'm a test pilot school graduate, and one of the key things that happens during that school is a flight experiences to reinforce the classroom. And I'm a huge believer in that. So what we added in is 2 years of immersive opportunities to reinforce those concepts learned in the classroom. Formalizing relationships in the process. You have joint partners doing qualitative evaluations on aircraft carriers and submarines, flying different airplanes, and seeing how all these pieces fit into the giant puzzle of joint all-domain operations. The skills they gain during those 2 years of experience is going to be priming them for high-profile commands and staff assignments and making them very high-value assets throughout the force. We're going to create recognized JADO leaders through this entire process. Now, already as part of the JADS program, you can attend a top-off course down at Hurlburt and get you a 13 Oscar, which is a new multi-domain officer Air Force specialty code. So we're going to continue to do that, but also award a special experience identifier so that on paper, these fellows are recognized leaders. And it also will assist the Air Force Personnel Center in Half A1 with appropriate assignments after these students finish their fellowship. Now, the icing on the cake, and I understand this may be already in work, but we'd like to award joint credit for these officers since they're spending 24 months in an assignment dealing with joint matters and becoming recognized joint leaders. Now, this isn't meant to be a replacement for the 13 Oscar career field or a cross-flow, but rather a complementary program to create this network of leaders. So let's talk about our journey and how we got here. Here's our original problem statement from the LeMay Center that we were charged with for the Project Mercury. Now, this original problem statement focused on getting doctrine faster, a little bit of education, some innovative solutions, best practices, vetting, all those things. But our proposal focuses on educating the force so that JADO isn't a special thing. It's just what we do naturally, and it's how we think. That's going to end in seamless collaboration that's going to result and feed all those processes. You can think of this as the first domino in a Rube Goldberg machine. You get this one right, everything else falls into place. So after our jump start, we've had this focused problem statement of how might the LeMay Center focus on shrinking the doctrine cycle, education of the force, and the fusion of concepts. Through this process, we took some original shots on goal, as Jeff likes to say, on how can we make doctrine faster, just focusing on the doctrine faster piece. We found that doctrine outreach, we thought about doing a DevOps construct where the doctrine writers were embedded in the operational units that were using this doctrine and having a seamless collaboration, and a wiki doctrine concept. Throughout this market research, we actually made a huge connection with the LeMay Center and the Orange Flag multi-domain operations CTF that's being stood up out at Edwards Air Force Base. Now, these guys are a multi-domain large force test series that's focused on advanced technology and kill chains and synergistic effects of 4th and 5th gen assets. Using data-driven approaches, they attempt to test like night one capabilities at the speed of relevance is their tagline. The LeMay Center had no idea that they existed. And so we connected them, and now they're working together to flesh out some TTPs. Speaking of, all of our experiments that we did the market research, we found that a lot of people were already tackling this, how to make doctrine faster. And to be honest with you, they came up with the same ideas that we did. So what we did, where most innovation teams would give up, we pivoted to tackle a human capital problem, searching deep down for the true root of the problem. So we went back to the drawing board. We found that JADO is still a hard concept to comprehend. Officers don't have a foundational understanding of what JADO is. We found that officers in the 11 to 13 year mark were primed for a JADO fellowship and seeking stability and predictability in their lives, especially those in joint spouse situations or those with school-aged kids or working spouses. We also found that our stakeholders were all in on this program. So we refocused our problem statement again and figured out how might Air University educate an elite cadre of joint-minded leaders to facilitate these fusions of concepts. So going back to our solution, we're going to create, with our program, we're going to create recognized joint leaders who are experts in air operations through 2 years of immersive joint experiences, and it all begins at Air University. So what does success look like to us? Well, in the immediate term, we would like one student that's currently in the JADS program to get a BNR up to Air Force Futures at A5 as a test and see if they're a good fit, if this program's a good fit for staff position to AFWIC. And then next year, we want to send 4 of the students to that to AFWIC / Air Force Futures. Long term, we're going to create a future joint-minded leaders that can conceptualize JADO, just like every air crew now understands CRM. So the ask, really small. We just want Air University to implement the JADO Fellow Program and then allocated a mere $50,000 to help out with the TDYs and get those joint immersion experiences. From the A5 side, we want them to sponsor this JADO program in a sense. It's going to be a pipeline, and then seed and match the $50,000 that Air University is putting up so that we can send their students out to get some immersive experiences. So let's revisit the lines of effort and show how we fit in. So all these lines of effort through establishing collaborative communities, research publication, forum leading thoughts, and education integration are all touched by the JADO Fellow Program. It'll act as a bridge between all these LOEs, creating a holistic approach to joint education. So one final thought here, the story of the smartphone. In 2005, the iPhone was revolutionary. It was a smartphone. It had apps, a camera, the internet in your pocket. Everyone thought it was really cool, and everyone thought you had to have it, but no one really understood like what the back end was. But today, everyone just knows it as a phone. Our proposal focuses on educating the force, so JADO isn't a special thing. It's just what we do. It's going to result in seamless collaboration and a common operating picture that feeds all the processes in the LeMay Center. Think of this as the first domino in the Rube Goldberg machine, like I mentioned before. If we get this right, everything else is going to fall into place. The time to change is now. What's good enough today may fail tomorrow. And we don't see this as an ask, but really a must do, or else we might lose. Thanks. I'm Rajan Ralston. We are the JADO Fellows, Education for the Future.
Wow, Brian, that's amazing. I was writing down, JADO is just what we do. That's tremendous. That really resonates with me, but it doesn't really matter if it resonates with me. It matters if it resonates with the judges. So we'll start with General Hecker.
All right, Ray,
sir, go ahead.
Thanks, appreciate that. And great presentation. And you're right, most people don't understand what JADO is and JADS. And quite honestly, I'm still trying to understand exactly what it is. But, you know, General Goldfein's example where he says, hey, I could take out, you know, he's talking to a crowd of 100. I could take out my iPhone. And as long as I have all your phone numbers, doesn't matter what service you are, you know, who you are, where you are, what phone you have, I can type you a message and you'll all get it. And that's what we're trying to do, you know, in essence. And then obviously the decision making and empowering people to make their own decisions with mission type orders. Hey, good news on the fellowship front. As you know, we have the AU fellow now. We got 75 for next year, and when General Brown was here, I told him that we wanted to get 75 every year, so not just that one-time good deal to realign things. And he was supportive of that, so we'll see what comes of that. So we should have some extra bodies. How many total JADO fellows were you thinking that we'd do a year? I know your initial proposal is, you know, the one, but what do you think we need a year?
Yeah, so initially we said 1, make sure it's a good fit, do 4, and then double it after that.
Okay, so 8 a year?
Yes, sir.
For the in-state? Okay. So they do the year ACSC, and I'm assuming they're in the JADS course, and then I'm assuming they're going to teach at the JADS course. And then the next 2 years, you said they get joint experience. So do you envision them going to a COCOM, to the joint staff, those kind of things?
Yes, sir. So actually that joint experience was during the student and instructor year. And then after they're done with their instructor year, they would just flow up to a staff position.
So, sir, this is Major Downing here at LeMay Doctrine. I'm representing the organization that actually passed the this question. So one of the concepts that we were also building upon, and I know we were conservative, we asked about 4 in the next 2 years, granted that the JADS program is already established. There's also been thought about putting it to 8 or even more. I know that there's been talk that the JADS fellowship is actually, the elective is growing as well. So there's a potential to even gain more. That's there. And the other concept that we were throwing around as well is Brian talked about the stability. I know there are fellows who may be in a spot, in a dual mill situation where it's actually more, or it's profitable for them to stay around. So the other thing that we were throwing around is actually to get one of these JADO fellows to they can go back to the LeMay and be incorporated in the War Gaming Center, or even in the doctrine themselves, and they can write this out. We didn't quite throw that in there because most people would probably want to go to the Air Force Futures, then stay around for another year at Maxwell Air Force Base. But that's actually also a potential for us to capitalize on just within in the LeMay Center.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So you said that joint experience is during the student and then instructor year. How are they getting that?
Yes, sir. So through immersive TDYs, which JADS has already established a few of those. We'd just like to expand on that, formalize some of those relationships so that it's a constant throughout the programs.
Okay. So they do 2 years here and then they go off to do the staff job?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then potentially LeMay or something like that,
Yes, sir.
Got you. Okay. All right, great. No, the JADS seminar, I think we got 2 of them now, right? In ACSC. I get some of the best compliments on those folks when they go out to different places around the world. You SAFE commander right now, General Harrigan, loves JADS graduates. And he says they're a much better product than the folks that just go to Hurlburt for their 6-week course or however long that is and move on. So that's great. So I'm not going to steal any more time, so I'll pass it off to Ashley.
Hey, and I probably know the least of understanding the JADS and the names and everything, so I'm trying to stay with it. But I did have a question. You said you go from 1 to 4 to possibly 8, and you do testing. One, who is actually monitoring the success or failure? Not say failure, but the opportunities for change and actually knowing if it's working. And how are you guys managing that? Like, who is in charge of managing that? Is that an additional role that has to be created, or a different additional that has to come on to somebody? And then how are you deciding who those people are? Is it a volunteer? They're saying, I want to be a part of this. How are you going into the transition from 1 to 4 to 8?
Yeah, so those are all really good questions. The fellowship is already being, like the AU fellow program is already being managed. So we would just tack that on because it wouldn't be any additional plus up. It would just be like, hey, here's a different program through there. And the selection process is already established. So we use the same selection process that the JADS program uses now. And that's an application process. Then Dr. Riley, who runs the JADS department, would select the people that he wants for that program.
Yeah. So I can probably cover the feedback piece of it. That's a really good question. In all honesty, we haven't really thought about that. And I do have here at LeMay Center, we coordinate a lot with the field. So that would be a means, kind of a feedback from the field of, hey, we have all these JADS fellows that are now at staff or whatever. That's probably one way that we could stipulate if this program is working based on the field feedback, if there's actually a change. So one of the things is education, right? Just they would help educate the force in general. And if they go into the staff, then they can make a difference in policy. And actually, they would probably be the same people that potentially you would be coordinating with.
Okay. I think that was probably the main question that I had. Yep. On to you, Trent.
Great. Guys, thank you very much. Very, very good presentation. I like the way you started. Good use of pictures and comments from credible leaders. It really articulated the importance of the conversation and the topic. What I would ask, maybe think about, start with the problem statement. You kind of got through all of it, and then you told me the problem statement. I think you just start with the problem statement. I got it. And as you were talking about it, I'm thinking about how we're going to solve it. And then you go through the proposal. I think that just would be a little smoother. I think you got awesome feedback from General Hecker. That statement that General Harrigan said about the value of the people he's getting, man, you got to incorporate that in there. That's money. You can't buy that. That's awesome. So I thought your ask was fantastic. There were 3 things. You wanted to implement the JADO Fellows Program. You need $50,000, and then the A5 as the sponsor. So I thought you guys just crushed that. Here's my question. The first one is, does the member have any input into the follow-on assignment? either for family reasons, personal reasons, medical reasons, or a particular area of expertise that they bring to the table that makes them maybe, better suited for one
Yeah, so
assignment.
just
over
like the
another.
CAF and MAF advanced assignment program now, there's a stipulation that, hey, here's where you're going to go after ACSE, but you can turn it down at any time without prejudice. We envision that it'd be the same thing. That way, if there's a family situation that comes up and they need to stay in Air University, it's not a done deal. They can go to LeMay, they can go find somewhere else in the Air University they can utilize these skills, maybe stay as an instructor an extra year. But we always want to have the members' voice in the process. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, there's also other potentials. You have interagencies that are still also working on JATC2 that could potentially be a good, especially with that coordination that we want in the future. That jointness could also fall on for interagencies as well. That's
Great.
just the thought that we were postulating.
Okay. No, I thought you guys did a great job. No other questions. Well done. Thank you.
What you have, Jeff? Sorry, we missed you on the last one, by the way.
Oh, no problem. Just first of all, I thought you did a nice job. Just a couple of quick notes. In the same way that here at the University of Michigan, we need to get a 6'5", 225-pound run a 4.2 quarterback. That's basically what you're asking for. You're asking for a quarterback here. And one of the challenges is talent doesn't scale very well. You're asking for a very special person. So I think what I'd like to see more of is how we're going to find them, how we're going to vet them, right? Because this can't be an ordinary person. And then two, how we're going to deal with this person and the staff. Because, the Air Force has this problem. We spend all this money and all this time developing somebody, then we put him into, it's like developing a surgeon and then making him a general practitioner in the next rotation. So that whole step down has to get coordinated. And then the second issue is there's two pieces that you want to think about downstream here. One is you're developing a person with a line of sight, and that's amazing, and that's that quarterback role. But they're also going to have to synchronize this when they're in their field. So those are two different kind of activities. So the issue is, how do we find the person and then staff them out appropriately, right? Because this is a special person. And then how do we develop that line of sight and then turn that into synchronization? I think it's a good plan. I thought you did a good job with it. Thanks.
Okay, well, that was great. Again, Jeff, we apologize that you couldn't get in on the last one. But we'll make up for it when we do the interview here in a couple of minutes. You can throw in anything you need, other comments about.
You're doing great. No worries. You're doing great. Keep going. You're hearing from the important people.
Well, great. And by the way, the place you're going to find that quarterback is down in Alabama, sir. That's where they're all at. We're down in Alabama. And
I thought it was the Air Force Academy.
If you want to run the option, sure, but otherwise, not too much. But okay, so anyway, Brian and Maria and the rest of your team, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your time here. And we're going to move on to the final pitch. We're doing really good on time. And so as we get ready to go into the final pitch, they're going to be representing Team Promiscuous. It's Lieutenant Colonel Taylor Bingo Heron, and he'll be briefing Optimizing Air Force Innovation Ecosystem. So, Bingo, are you there?
Howdy, you got me?
I got you, brother. You just
said
slides.
Let's do this slideshow. So can you see our slides as well? You see my slides as well?
Yep, we got them.
Awesome. Hey, so Colonel Bingo Heron here. Also part-time dad. So sorry about that. So we're super excited to be a part of this. Up front, didn't agree to do a musical, so I apologize in advance if we don't dance and all that good stuff. So we'll fail, right? I don't know if you guys saw Spark Tank last year. If you did, do you remember what they did at the end? Do you remember who won?
I'm
so
sorry, you're coming in a little bit broken.
So that's
Bingo.
That's my proposal. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, your audio's dropping out. So you want to give it another shot now?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So last year at Spark Tank, bottom line, 3 guys won. Outside in, I will tell you that I think all of these pitches are pretty good. Sorry, just 1 second.
Hey, that's, I guess, the part-time dad piece and the sound piece. It's all good. So, yeah.
I'm only one crazy door knock from a 2-year-old at my door.
You guys
So
are
I understand.
Okay, so here's the deal. Come here. Come here. Come here. I know you're there. Okay. So let me just roll through this. So, short of it is, super excited to be here, General Hecker. So, candidly, there's a lot of things you can do right now. The fact that you're investing in the innovation space is really good to see. I mean, we need a lot of it. So it's, and glad to see you're doing that. Joel Edwards, Ashley. I can tell you, I've heard a lot of folks that pop down to Alabama. They get a lot of stuff. It's a huge touch point for our community. So just the fact that you're there and are able to kind of help move that forward. So the guys at MGM Works and Mercury and all that, it's fantastic. So Jeff DeGraff said that he'd give me a free polo, and he said he'd also give me, I think it was like a lifetime supply of Domino's if I said good things about the Mercury program. So I'm supposed to do that, but I'm kind of joking. The God honest reality is they're doing great. What I would tell you is that in the Air Force, we don't have an innovation problem. We have an innovation adoption problem. And that's a lot to do with the kind of stuff that Jeff and his team kind of pushed through the competing values framework. So we got a lot of greens, we have a lot of reds, and that reds become very important. So pretty passionate about this program. I'm glad we got an opportunity to do it. So, thanks for letting us do that. So we got a pretty big team here. Our team, we started off with the objective of linking AU and USAPA to national strategic challenges, kind of similar to the challenge you saw in the A team. So we definitely wanted to accomplish that, but we saw they were also working a similar vein, so we kind of broadened it out. So what we really went after was something we thought was a little bit bigger, which was really trying to pull the best out of academia, the best out of our operators, the best out of industry, and the best out of program managers, to kind of pull that together in a cohesive manner. So that's what we went after. So we're really trying to optimize the entire Air Force innovation ecosystem. I'm super biased, but I think we got kind of a dream team at our disposal. So this comm suite only allows you to see me and Steve Marshall from USAPA, and that's kind of good and bad, right? So it's good for me because it means I can say whatever I want. I can brag about the other dudes. They can't stop me. It's bad for them because it's like their worst nightmare, right? So let me show you the team real quick. So this is them. So the top right there, Tony Perez. So he's basically the connector of all connectors, knows everyone and everybody from AFWorks. Hugely helpful for us. He actually he planned to have a baby during this cohort, and I think he did it on purpose so he could have some extra, baby leave time to focus on this. So we appreciate him doing that. Up in the top, I guess right there, got Colt Owens. So Colt's actually down there with you guys. He's passionate NCO working over at OTS. So what he did for us was allow us to make sure that our ideas were rooted basically in airman's view, right? That we didn't just get this ivory tower-esque look that it would survive, rubber meets the road. So it's pretty valuable to have him on the team. We had Will Woodward. And so Will basically drives the innovation portfolio at AFWIC, which is what we just got briefed on. So hugely powerful guy. Bothered me a lot because he's really red, but that's perfect because he asks all the questions that green guys like me need to hear all day long. So he really helped us kind of hone a lot of stuff. So he's dialed in here too, and I just can't say thanks enough for all the work that he did on that one. Steve Marshall, you'll hear from him in a bit, but from USAPA. So I'll stop the introductions there because you'll get him in a bit. And then finally, Jim there. So poor Jim. So he was the cat herder for all of us, and he was the guy that kind of caught everything every time it almost hit the floor. So literally yesterday he was redoing our slides because somebody put a picture of the Pakistani Air University inside these slides you're going to see in. Apparently that's wrong. Who knew? So he deserved his PowerPoint 201 patch. So thanks a lot to Jim. And then you're stuck with me. So basically we're trying to solve a pretty hard problem. So we'll talk you through our what and our how, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the why first. So this is just an example. I don't know if you guys are aware of what this campaign was, but I mean, effectively it's idea number 8226. I don't know what that means. I didn't know, but I knew this guy was like a really good marketer, and he had a lot of presentations like this floating all around the internet. It ended up being the number 2 voted idea on the Vice Chief Challenge this year. So we're like, well,
hey, bingo! As much as you're on a roll, we're gonna have to stop you because your audio keeps breaking up. So I think what we need to do is we're going to go to a short break. We're going to give you a chance to reset or check your connections, whatever it may be, and then we're going to bring you back in. Judges, you good to go with that? Okay, good deal. So we're going to cut to a short break, and so we'll see you back here in about 2 minutes, okay?
Okay, copy.
Thanks, brother. Out.
What I expect to achieve during this sprint is to collaborate with MGM Works and Bespin and create a software that will give a team chief a streamlined checklist.
Our team chiefs get tasked with navigating 4 or 5 PDFs at once in order to find 250 steps out of 850 that they see.
These checklists are far too confusing, causing them to focus too much on sorting through the PDF checklist and not performing a safe and reliable load.
During this sprint, what I expect to achieve is to bring a design, an idea to Spark Tank, and it provides us with the support and the funding that we need to get this smart checklist into the hands of our airmen that need it.
If they can win funding there and greater sponsorship, that will drive the Air Force to bring it up in the priority list and bring the effectiveness of this checklist project to bear much quicker for the Air Force.
MGM Works give us all the tools necessary to make this project possible.
Our purpose in all of this is to make those connections, bring these folks together for the collaboration.
They gave us the teams that we could collaborate and create a product that we were really happy with. This technology is going to give the team chief the ability to enter his input conditions, and it will produce a streamlined checklist with only the applicable steps for that particular load. And weapons load crews are going to load aircraft 36% faster.
This benefits the overarching Air Force goals, which are to drive innovation, to cost effectively modernize, and ultimately to restore readiness in order to win any fight anytime.
At MGM Works, our mission is to foster the collision of ideas between what the Air Force is working on and with any source of ideas from outside the gate. And this coding sprint is about just that.
It's designed to deliver a list of the different events that are going on inside the local area to ensure that the military members are aware of all the activities that they can participate in and the things available for them inside the local community. The scope of the project was centered around deriving information from a variety of local websites and exposing it to an Air Force application that'll both benefit the users that are reaching the system to find out about these events, as well as the local businesses that are hosting these events. The team's been able to accomplish that in the course of this event.
At MGM Works, our mission is to foster the collision of ideas between what the Air Force is working on with anyone with an idea that might be able to help the Air Force more rapidly work through the issues they have. For this venue we have today, we're doing a showcase of technologies to help answer a particular Air Force issue.
Today's technology showcase was great because we got to really see the art of the possible. We had 8 different vendors come to show us what they are capable of, which was fantastic. We didn't have any requirements built and we really needed to see what was possible. So what we're looking for is a virtual environment where we can teach them all the fundamentals of how an Air Operations Center works and let them experience it firsthand in a very immersive environment.
Whatever the topic is, our mission in fostering that collision of ideas is to bring companies or individuals with the ideas and the technologies in to showcase them for the Air Force and other military customers. Thank you for being out here tonight. I appreciate y'all coming out and staying with us. We brought in several different topics. We wanted to make them diverse, highlight the Air University research and some of the very interesting issues that the Air Force is going after. MGM Works is about the collision of ideas. We hope we brought some ideas together to get you to think about the relevant things for our national security.
And the winner is going to go to Alex Chris, the tail of the street.
So from Agent Chris's program, we were able to secure $1.5 million. So I just wanted to say congratulations. But that kind of shows you what a pitch night is all about.
Okay, I think we're back. Dr. DeGraff, what do you think? This is kind of the design process where you have some errors, you go back, you fix those errors, you go back in and test again, and apparently we're stuck in that loop right now, but it's all okay.
And we're all learning about innovation because we're on an online platform. It's all working just fine. Just keep
Awesome.
going
and,
forward.
You know, I bet
That's all you
Zoom
can
and
do.
all those other guys don't have these cool commercials, right? Like we do. So that's all good. Okay, we're back. Bingo. We did a sound check with you. You ready to go, my friend?
I think so.
Okay.
So can you guys hear me okay? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so again, ultimately what we're trying to do is get after optimizing the innovation ecosystem. A lot of great dudes on our team. I'm super biased. I think we kind of got a bit of an A team. I can say that about these dudes because they're not on the link and they can't debate it. So can't say enough. I won't go through all of them, but just big picture, we had AFWORKS representation, we had AFWIC representation, we had AU representation, we had USAFA representation, and then we had, I think I said AFWIC already, but and then we also had folks from OCS. So we deliberately built a pretty diverse team on purpose, diverse not only in location where they're at, but also diversity in kind of their styles and their values, if you will, from the competing values piece that Dr. Draft will talk about. So for us, couldn't be more happy. So that's kind of where we're at. Just want to make sure you can still hear me. You hear me okay?
Yeah, we're experiencing some of the same problems we had last time.
Okay, so I'll just try and go super loud. So this is basically just an example of an innovation thing that got pushed through. So this was something that effectively it's a 3-year project in the works. A really good PR campaign by someone this year that got it voted number 2 in the Vice Chief Challenge. And so I was kind of wondering what was it. And so this is what it was in a nutshell. So effectively, every one of us is out there trying to build templates and whatnot. You have to do bullet background paper, you have to do point paper, whatnot. So you go to the tongue and quill. So this idea is really simple. Effectively, all they asked was to turn that into actual no kidding templates and put them on EPUBs. Sounds like a super simple solution, right? The challenge with that is that it took them 3 years to try and get it to Vice Chief of Challenge kind of focus to get there. And we're still working it, candidly. And this is just one very, very small example. And so what we did is we kind of took a step back and said, if we can't solve a problem like this in 3 years, there's no way we're going to solve a problem like that. Right? So, I mean, going up against China and winning, it means we're not going to have to solve problems on 8-year or 10-year or 20-year timelines. We're going to have to be able to solve problems quickly. And problems a lot harder than just building templates. So what we did as a team is we really wanted to knock into that and figure out, what does it take to get through it and how do you do that? And so we did a couple things to get there. The first thing we did is we did a whole lot of user interviews. So we obviously looked at academia. So we talked a lot around AU. We talked a lot around USAFA. We talked to a little bit of the guys at AFRL that work that academic outreach program. But we also went to the operator side, and we deliberately interviewed folks that had walked through the innovation ecosystem and succeeded, right? So we went to the Spark Tank winners from last year. I will tell you that to a T, every single one of them was pretty frustrated with the process, and we're still struggling to get through it. And that's even for folks that have gone all the way to that stage and gone to the end. And we're getting them back on track, so it's all good. But it really highlighted to us there's a lot of work to do there, even on the operator side, to try and get ideas birthed in the process. From industry, we did a lot of outreach to industry as well. Same thing, a lot of opacity in the system that makes it really hard for them to understand the size of markets. And then we looked at kind of the program manager side of this. So what does it look like if you're a PEM at the Pentagon, or if you're a PEO? And we realized that it's probably one of the least focused on, probably one of the most important aspects of all of this. You know, how do we not just give them 15 more things and creative ideas on their plate, but how do we give them things that we can actually adopt? Can you hear me okay now? Yeah. Okay. So the next step that we did is we thought, you know, we had some good ideas, but it was kind of broad. There was a whole lot to get after, so we wanted to really skinny that down. And so in order to skinny that down, what we did is we decided we pulled people together and try and focus. So we pitched AFWorks to do a design sprint. We pulled in folks from around the entire community to participate. We had folks from Defense Entrepreneur Forum. We had folks from, you know, AFWIC, from you know, AU, from USAFA, all throughout the AFWorks infrastructure, AFRL, et cetera. So quite a few folks. We even brought in Rachel Kerr, the innovation lead for Mark Cuban, to help us on this problem. And so as we went through it, we kind of dug down to 3 core areas we thought were worth really getting after. So the first one was this concept of social connectors. So there's a lot of processes out there that we try and get through that we can use for innovation, but the reality is most of what gets done because people know people. But our innovation ecosystem isn't wired in a way that supports that architecture. So think LinkedIn, or you know, like a military version of LinkedIn, or things of that nature. How does an airman reach out and find out rather quickly who else is working their problems, who else has shared interest, and who else can, you know, help them mass to get across the line? So we really wanted to tackle that piece because we thought it was incredibly powerful. The second thing we saw was a lack of access to data, which is similar to the problem that Team A, or Alpha A Team, I think if they want to call themselves that, briefed for AU specific. You have a lot of great data. That data is in a place that's really hard for people to access. No different for the cyber community, so for the industry side of that house, no different than our Airman Powered by Innovation ecosystem. So we have 4,500 ideas sitting there in a spot that's hard to expose. And this problem goes on and on. So for us, the second thing was, how do we expose that in a material way that allowed an airman to come into the ecosystem, find out who's working the problems, and then find out, you know, what data can be exposed to help them. How do they know there's 4 other people? How do they know there's already a cyber? How do they know there's already a research paper written on something? How do they know there's, you know, someone at USAFA already working on the problem? So we want to solve that as well. And then finally, an innovation pipeline that can move at scale and speed. So the candid reality is, innovation for most of our Air Force today is done as treated as a stovepipe process that comes out the top and effectively gets pushed back down from the top down. So you'll have things like Spark Tank, you'll have other, you know, other efforts through WebTac or whatnot that highlight issues, and then we try and push them back into the ecosystem. The challenge with that is doing that at scale. It's very difficult to do. So we thought getting after this was also a really, really hard problem. So effectively, that put us in a place where we understood what the problems were, we scoped them down, and now we're ready to just go pitch it and see where we go. And we thought, where do we do that at? How do we go big? So Jeff DeGraff would tell us, you got to terraform Mars, you got to nuke Mars, you got to do something with Mars. I don't know, something about Mars. I paid attention. It was definitely Mars. But you had to think big. So we thought, why not go to the Chief of Staff of the Air Force? And so we did. So we went and we pitched, you know, General Brown about our idea about how do we get after this. And as everyone already is tracking, you know, he's all about accelerating change or losing. He knows this stuff's important, and so he backed us to do that. And so what we're going to do, so we're not pitching to do this, we're actually doing it. What we're doing next is we're going to run a full workshop out of AFWorks Vegas with feeder events that pop into that, focused around those 3 core areas, and the real deliverable being actionable things that we can take and then fund and then execute in order to accelerate change in our workforce. So what we're doing now, honestly, is pitching to get the senior advocacy to make sure we get the right guys in the room. We build that senior steering council. So this is kind of where we're at today. So from an innovation perspective, we got a hold of Bruce, so he's basically the guy that runs Airman Powered by Innovation. We got a hold of Lauren Knossenberger, and we pitched her, and she's in. Jeff DeGraff has been helping us all along, and we want to continue to partner with him. Rachel Kerr is there from the industry side, so again, Mark Cuban advisor. General Pringle is helping. Head of AFWorks is helping. General Wilson's helping. General Brown's helping. And we keep going around that list. But the gaps we have right now, General Kremer out at U.S. Space Force, so we have a line lined up with her to have a conversation about it. I think we're going to make good progress. We started a conversation with Dr. Roper. But there's one more person on there that we really, really need, and that's someone called General Hecker. So what we're looking to do is candidly solve a problem. So Team A hit this, the exposure of your data, the ability to do all the things and solve the problems that Team A laid out. So I think it's important for AU. And I think AU has particular value proposition for the rest of the innovation ecosystem in that it's one of the few places to pull all our operators together from across different walks of the world, different operational paths, have them pause for a little bit of time and think deep about hard problems, and give them the bandwidth to understand what it means to innovate and how to lower those barriers of entry to get into our ecosystem. And so we're all about doing this. We really want to do it. So our pitch is not for a green trophy. It's not to win the Mercury thing. I mean, we're really just pitching one thing here today. We just want you, General Hecker. We just want you to be on our strategic advisory council to help us understand how we can help you, kind of meet the end states you need there at AU. So with that, I'll pause. I hope you heard some of that, and sorry about the comms.
General Hecker, they want you.
Yeah,
it's all you.
Sounds like it. Well, hey, great. I like how this marries up with the first pitch, and it is basically your idea is to take what they pitched, in the first presentation, and put the nuts and bolts behind it, and have the web page and everything that links everybody together, kind of thing. Did you hear that, Bingo?
Yeah, I think what I took out of that was, would this enable us to link together? And I think the short answer is yes. So I think what we would probably want to do is pull in AU representation to our design sprints so we can understand those needs and make sure they're incorporated. But then we've got a couple SBIR phase 3 opportunities there. There's a couple other efforts going on with joint staff. I won't mention companies just because the lines we're on, but the short of it is, yes, I would like an airman to walk in and say, I want to build another wrench, a different wrench, or whatever like the K-wedge, whatever they want to do. And I want them to immediately know that there's 5 other people trying to solve that problem, that there's 4 SBIR companies out there already on contract working this, that there's 15 in line that would have helped them, and that there's guys at AU that have already tackled this problem, right? That are now sitting on air staff or wherever they're at that we can call and talk to, or that there's people trying to work this, this issue. So we actually ran into this the other day. I forget the exact topic, but I was working with someone and he's like, I actually wrote a paper on that. I'm like, well, give me your paper. I mean, that could have been really useful, right? So we don't have that means today, but we'd like to develop it. And we think we have the whole chart into it.
Yep. And did you say you're working this through?
Through AFWorks. Yeah, so AFWorks is helping us with the design sprints, but it's definitely bigger. So we got General Pringle involved. We've got USAF on board. We've got AFWIC. We're working them, and then we're working it out of the Chief of Staff's office.
And is anyone giving you money for this?
Not yet, but we'll get it.
Yep. Well, you got the right people, obviously. So.
Well, on the point of money, so we did look at that. So originally we were going to pay, design sprints were relatively cheap. So we were going to pay about 20 grand for it. AFWorks was actually so excited about it, they gave it to us for free. And they agreed to continue with the basically the feeder events. What we're scoping right now is we're thinking about 500 from around the community. Our initial scoping session, within a week of setting it up, we already had 50 in the room. We actually had to scale it down. So I don't think 500 is unrealistic. It would cost about another 20 grand to do that. But we're also looking at bringing on strategic consultants to part of that process. So think of a defense innovation board, but for the Air Force. So we get the right guys from industry in to kind of help us out. So anyway, we're rolling those costs up now. We're looking at end-of-year options. So the ask for AU is not money. I mean, if you got money, we'll take it, right? But it's really not an ask for money. It's an ask for a seat at the table. So here's what I'm doing with the other strategic advisors. AO level, because at the AO level, we're going to work till 2 a.m. We do our piece, we package our stuff up, but we want to bounce it off those strategic advisors so that way you can look at it and say, hey, bingo, have you thought about this or that? Or, this doesn't survive first contact with XYZ. Or, hey, maybe there's a guy that can help you out, and I'll send you an email and connect them. To allow us to continue to expedite that. And in exchange, what it gives you is an outside voice as AU into the processes that are going to be shaped throughout the Air Force for innovation. Because I firmly believe AU belongs in that circle, and they need to be there.
I agree, and it will help, if successful, it'll help in our branding effort and everything else too. So that's very good. Thanks. I appreciate it, Bingo.
Yes, sir.
Ashley.
So, am I correct that you're saying you all are from knowing that there's a need for people in process, and I liked that you kind of talked about that because you noticed both, but you also said that the first group kind of talked about the process, right, of getting access to the paper. So really, you're bringing in the people to accompany. Are you saying if that's already if they were able to do what they want to do, to accompany what's being done for the data side of it, but now you have an idea, you go through to see who also has ever had that idea. In order to expand on that idea, you say you will create a network of people that they can immediately talk to in order to expand on that idea after they've read who has already been doing it, right? So you would be managing the people side, or you still think that there'd be something different than what was talked about before from the process, the data information side?
Short answer is yes. All of that and more. So let me break them in pieces. So on the people side, these networks exist already. I mean, they already do. So if you read John Cotter, he talks about dual operating structures and all that. So there's a whole lot of research on this, but we need a hierarchical organization because I need a guy that knows HR to run HR, right? And I need a guy that knows finance to run something called finance. I don't need to dabble in those things. So you need the hierarchy, but hierarchies are not designed for agility. But networks help. So you need them both. The key becomes, and candidly at your level, you probably see this all day long. I'm like Joe Hecker, I'm pretty sure when you want something done, you don't go to TMT and try to figure out how to write a tasker and try to staff it something, right? You pick up the phone, you call somebody, those processes follow. So what tends to happen for most airmen is airmen stumble through, and it's just pure serendipity if they run into someone that they know or they make a connection. And even when you maintain those connections, so I don't consider myself a super connector, but I'm pretty high up there. So let's just say there's 500 key people I know that can make things happen. In our Air Force, they move every 2 years, right? No way I'm going to remember who's working what every 2 years. It is literally a daily affair for me that I talk to someone and they're like, hey, you should bring this guy into this problem. His name's Jeremy. And I'm like, Jeremy? I talked to him yesterday and he owes me a beer. I'm like, really? I'm like, Jeremy, I didn't know you're working this. Let's work it, right? Because we just don't have that visibility. So we haven't built the architecture to do that. The most simple parallel is LinkedIn. So I don't know if you're familiar with LinkedIn, but if you jump in it, there's a search function. Mm-hmm. So here's how LinkedIn works in the background. In the background, what it does, it basically, it catalogs your skill sets. So if you say I'm a marketing manager, it'll say you probably know some about money and this and that. It's relatively rudimentary in that sense, right? And then you self-select into different talents. Imagine that for the Air Force, though, right? I don't just know you're a director of operations. I actually know what that position does. Like I know that billet number and what it does. And I know that all the way down, and I know your skill sets all the way down, right? So I know what training you've gone to, all that stuff, right? And I don't just know your connections because you opted in to connect some guy. I happen to have an alpha roster. I knew you were in a unit with the guy two assignments ago. So imagine going to Ramstein Air Base or you're at AU and I'm trying to solve a problem and I search for who knows finance at Maxwell. And I'm like, well, no one I know. But guess what? Someone that you were in a unit with 2 units ago knows a guy that's here, and just call him. So the power of that connection is pretty cool. We're actually working with, so I've got a line out to LinkedIn executives to talk to them about this. It's just one option. You know, we want to look through a couple. But so from the people side, that's that. From the data architecture side, what we're not trying to do is solve every data problem for every one of the Air Force. That wouldn't make sense, right? What we want to do is connect into it. So what we found looking around, there's a lot of people working this at different levels. So if you go to the SIBR Center of Excellence, they're currently on contract trying to figure out how to catalog all their SIBRs and get it out of spreadsheet land and get into the big spot. That's great. We need it. If you go to AFRL's, it's called Apex. It's a $59 million program that basically connects academia with small startups. Same thing. They got a big process out there where they try and figure out what universities work in what businesses, they catalog it, they're trying to get all that together. If you go to the ideation platform, again, 4,500 ideas. If you go to CPI architecture, you got all those ideas. There's a lot of these databases out there.
Right.
They don't connect. So what I would say is mass on what AU's doing with Team A, but just tie us into it. So what I would want to do is tie that into it. So I could then, Airman has an issue, he's working a problem, and he can query and find out that the guy at AU is working that problem.
And you can create that for 20,000. Did I hear that?
No. Design's
okay.
No, it'll be much more expensive. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
but you have sources for funding that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sitting on a bad cash. I mean, to be totally fair, but I think we do have means to get there. And what I would say is that if an individual person wants to solve for an individual unit, which we're doing in a lot of individual units, that's interesting. It's not compelling until it comes together. I'm not going to walk up as like Joe Smo saying, "I want to solve for the Air Force." That's why we need to get the right collective people together, put that together, have a consolidated push forward. But candidly, we're getting pretty far. So there's a big difference between me going up and saying, "I want to do it," versus, nope, we chopped this through AU, through USAFA, through AFWIC, through, keep going, right? And then there's consolidated push, and then it makes a lot of sense. Now, there is technology we've got out there that can do this. So it's not a technology problem, and it's not a ridiculous dollar amount, probably a handful of million.
Okay.
And then the last piece, just the pipeline. So there's some commercial technology out there. And then there's candidly some consultancy work that we'll have to pull in to help.
Okay, Trent, what you got? Hey, Trent, you with us?
Hi.
I guess Trent's not with us, so Jeff, it is yours.
No, I've talked to Bingo a lot. I think he's done a lot of really good work. It reflects a lot of what I've been brought into all around the Pentagon. Everyone's trying to do this. The only thing I give you this example. I got brought in the 90s to IBM, which has this problem of line of sight. You know that the solutions exist between the units. What they did was they built a solution business without trying to change the structure of the existing business. It's a brilliant act by Paul Masano. He went on to be the CEO. Every university has a business engagement center and a tech transfer center. All the big research houses have it. So the issue that you're getting is exactly right, which is all those networks exist. And the superconnectors you're talking about, we all know each other right now anyway. We either liked each other or hated each other since graduate school, right? So the notion is that's true. But in a sense, bureaucracy, what we want are superconnectors over the superconnectors, only a handful of them, because there's some traffic that needs to be adjusted here. So some of the stuff you're talking about, like that AFWorks does, we have something called the Innovation Roundtable, which is the VC community, and there's a million of these, right? So the issue really becomes how to find what you're looking for. And I couldn't agree more with the way you've set this up. There has to be something that's scalable, but at the end of the day, it's really tying these superconductors together. So I think you're on the right path. The one thing I would caution you about, because I have talked to the same people you have from the Defense Innovation Board down, there's a lot of ownership issues here. There's a lot of step in other people's gardens, and you want to be careful that you let them. Remember, you have to get in here is people do things that they feel ownership for. So you want to be careful about that, so that you're simply creating a line of sight. You're not getting in their way.
Okay.
And to that point, I think that's the reason why it's so critical that we don't just design a solution and try and implement it. That they really have to be part of that process, particularly on the network side. You're not going to convince any dude that cares about working outside the formal hierarchy to just adopt whatever you put out there. So it's really important to us to have that user engagement and get those users to kind of work through those processes, toy with what they think makes sense.
Hey, Bingo, I'm going to have to cut you off. We're out of time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Steve, thanks for showing up. I appreciate you being there, pal.
I'm a loyal wingman.
Yes, you are. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to usher you guys back up the stage. And so for our viewers, this is the time where General Hecker, Dr. DeGraff, and the rest of the judges are going to go ahead and head into their star chamber, and they're going to go ahead and deliberate, and they're going to talk about who they think the winner of this initial Project Mercury Award will be. So judges, you're good to go off. And Jeff, actually, I'd ask you to stay because I'm going to do a little interview with you, if that's okay. So Jeff, what do you think so far? What are your thoughts?
I like it. I think these represent a lot of really good thinking. I like the level of research. The one thing I would always say that we can learn, there's always got to be a teachable point of view, is a lot of these projects have a ta-da, and sometimes it's a little hard to find it, right? So we call this in journalism burying the lead.
Right.
So make sure you don't bury the lead. You know, if the issue is we're trying to create the super person or it solves this person's problem, remember, everybody reads their own horoscope first. They don't care about your idea. They care about how it solves their problem. So good stuff, some really good stuff. I feel very confident that these are projects that can get some wings.
Okay, perfect. So for the viewers, thank you, Dr. DeGraff. For the viewers, again, I've invited Dr. DeGraff back on the stage for a short conversation to talk about innovation. We're going to go ahead and put this on our special edition of our Works on the Web. And so with the Works on the Web, we're going to go ahead with our questions. We're supposed to have some bumper music in there, by the way. Awesome. Welcome back. Appreciate you being here, Dr. DeGraff. It's a pleasure to actually have an opportunity to talk to you. I've seen you on video. I've seen you around, but I've never really had a chance to talk. And so thank you for being with me today. I have a couple questions for you.
Thanks for having me on, Eric.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thanks for having me on, Eric.
Oh, you're welcome. Can you briefly describe what it means to innovate or to be an innovator? What does that mean?
Well, it's funny. I got asked in the 90s by the federal government to come up with a definition for it. And my definition, I think, floored people. I said it's simply useful novelty. That's all innovation is. It can be incremental. It can be something radical, like we're going through with a vaccine. And, if people want something a little more, one of my heroes, Marshall McLuhan, gave us 4 things we should look for in an innovation. 1, it enhances something. It makes it better and new. 2, it eliminates something. That smartphone got rid of a lot of cameras in this country. 3, it returns us to something that we feel we've lost. We don't want to live like the Jetsons. We want to live like hobbits. Think about that little blue pill. All of a sudden, we're all 25 again, right? And finally, it reverses into its opposite over time. Remember when email was going to set you free. So innovation is just useful novelty, but if you want a little more, it has these kind of 4 attributes to it.
Wow. So my wife, I heard her talking to her brothers the other day about, remember the store, the Sharper Image?
Yep.
Remember that store?
I do.
Yeah, that was kind of the innovation store, right?
Yeah.
You go there and find out what's cool, what's on the shelf. And so
now stores are antiquated. We're not seeing many stores. We're watching them fall down very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So does innovation mean the same thing to a Fortune 500 company as it does to the Air Force?
Yes and no. Innovation happens the same in any large organization. There's two places innovation usually happens. It happens at the senior level in organizations, particularly like in the big companies, because the way you get paid if you're a CEO is by running up the stock price. Capitalism requires capitalists. So they're going to be growth oriented. And the same is true at the front line of the organization where they're dealing with customers. The middle of the organization is designed to maintain the equilibrium, what's called the operating rhythm. Military is no different. Where the pressure is coming from the top and the bottom. What's different, is a company's trying to make another $1 billion. The military is trying to keep us safe. So the level of importance is not comparable. The military is doing something far more important than most companies are.
Absolutely. So sometimes it surprises me. I spent 20 years in the Air Force and I've been out for 15 cents. And I'm still surprised that we are the best Air Force in the world by far. We are the best military in the world by far. But sometimes we're so far behind. And I know we're trying to get there. And it's a challenge. So having gentlemen like yourself and other instructors on board to help us get there, boy, we really appreciate you, Dr. DeGraff.
We really appreciate what you do, and we're trying. The wonderful thing that we're running into is America is the most heterogeneous culture. So our innovations are going to come from our diversity, our constructive conflict, the differences that we've got, which will overwhelm the enemy. But if all we're going to try and do is compete on alignment, we've got a peer adversary that's been doing this for 4,000 years.
Right.
So we've got to go back to what our strength is, which includes industry, the academy, and of course, the Air Force and the military.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that's one of the reasons, well, I know there's many reasons, but why we were so successful in some past wars is that we weren't predictable. And we had a very innovative engine. We allowed the men and women in the ranks to be innovative and make things happen very quickly. That's why we have some tremendous Medal of Honor winners that did some very innovative things very quickly.
Very true.
Which I think is different than our peers. Our peers are very regimented. They're very, very much in line. This is the box that we work in.
Think of it like this. You're a venture capitalist with 100 corporations in your portfolio, and you're competing against something large. So if I may make a metaphor for you, if this makes sense, we've had a lot of problems with this virus. And the way we've tried to do it is we're trying to control it. We're not very good at a control society. The Chinese have done a better job in locking things down, kind of a totalitarian things. But what people haven't noticed is something extraordinary has happened in what we call creativity clusters. All of a sudden, the University of Michigan and Pfizer, Oxford and AstraZeneca, Harvard and Moderna, they have equity positions in small startups and fintech and the venture capital community, and they organically have come together. And they have got radical different solutions for this. So I have high confidence that we're not only going to solve this problem, we're going to take drug discovery and we're going to cut it by about 2/3. We're going to radically change drug discovery. Well, the Chinese and the Russians are probing our computers right now because they're looking for a solution to this, right? They've got a very monological approach to this. And what we're going to do is we're going to find our solution in an unlikely place. And here's what's going to be different. It usually is the old tries to assimilate the new, tries to assimilate the innovation. Not in America when we're really cooking on gas, because what happens is the new will assimilate the old. Sorry to say, a lot of your favorite stores are going to go away. Sorry to tell people at the Food and Drug Administration that how drugs are going to be developed is going to be very different. Sorry to tell professors that education is going to be different from here on out after we've been Zoom and Who for a year.
Right.
So that, I think, is our advantage.
Yeah. So there are so many changes, and for an older for an older person like myself, it's kind of sad to see some of these businesses that I grew up with have to go away. But I understand that they just were not able to adapt. And
and I think that's what what General Brown is seeing is we have to do three things really well. We have to accelerate our ability to innovate. Boy, don't we? We have to synchronize, which you've heard on all the presentations today. And the most important thing is we have to return to our culture of innovation.
Right.
That sense of destiny. I grew up in the 60s. I'm an older fellow. We're going to the moon. We're going to lick the commies and we're going to build the net. We did. Those horrible old boomers. but that sense of it's not just about staying number one. It's about wanting to get to the next thing.
Right.
And, you know, boy, I'm so proud of these Air Force guys because I'm seeing an amazing sense of destiny. And I just really want to support that and see if we can inspire more of it.
Yeah. So working with the Air Force and working with Air University, are you working solely with the officer side, or are you also working with the enlisted side?
Both. And I'm working a lot of different units in the Air Force and including some out of the Air Force also. But the notion is we're all trying to bring it together. I'm trying to make sure that most of these projects we work on, we don't have redundancies. We bring all the right people together, and including the enlisted people who do most of the work in this world, I want to point out, just like my graduate students do. You know, there was a time when I was at that level and you were at that level. So I hope we remember that. But absolutely, this has got to start at the grassroots level. If we can't get the airmen involved in this, we're not going to be able to scale it.
Absolutely. And I think that you'll find a very willing participants in the enlisted force. These young men and women are tremendous.
And they're highly ingenious too.
Oh, absolutely.
They have to be. They're
let's not
under-resourced, they're underloved, they're underfed. We got to take care of these folks.
Right. Now, let's not forget our civilian employees too. They're tremendous assets to it. So the next question I have for you, I went to your website. So HTTPS, and then it's jeffdegraff.com. Great website. I could learn so much. It's like going back to school, but it's in 2-minute little bits, which is really the way we think, right? In 2-minute bites. And I took your innovation test. How do you innovate was the name of the test.
Yep.
And
who are you?
I came back as a sage. No one has ever called me a sage before.
No, I think you kind of are. Basically, my work is based on the work of two very important professors, Robert Quinn and Kim Cameron, and they're no strangers to the military.
Right.
My work looks at innovation, and it looks at innovation not only in the type of person you are, Eric, but in the type of practices a unit might use. And my work in businesses is predicting what kind of stock price you're likely to get out of this. So it's not just a Myers-Briggs test. It's looking at these worldviews and how these worldviews actually translate into outcomes. So a sage is somebody who's going to be extroverted, going to be a connector, going to be somebody who's interested in building on the relationships and the values of an organization. The opposite of the sage is going to be an athlete, somebody who's interested in winning short term, interested in goal orientation. You're going to have the engineer interested in building things at scale. They're going to get into details. Usually we're going to find these people who are held together by process. And of course, you're always going to find people like myself who are going to be artists. And we're very interested in doing things first, where we have the attention span of a gnat. We like to build new things. When I was really young, I was really lucky. I'm probably yucky too, but I was really lucky. I got to be an advisor to Steve Jobs when I was a young man. And I worked for Tom Monahan, right? And building Domino's Pizza, right? And so when you get around these people, what you discover is that they understand their strengths, but also like superheroes, they get what their weakness is.
Right.
And they surround themselves with people who have different strengths, and they engage in the creative power of constructive conflict. That's why diversity, Eric, is so critical. When we look at, here you are in Montgomery, the 21 places on the planet, on this country that produce almost all the intellectual property. I live in a small town called Ann Arbor that has more VC per person than any city in this country right now. It's 100 people. But the notion is when you look at these communities, what's unique is they're really diverse. So you came from California, you would know that, right? So the issue is as we bring those diverse groups together, right, all the different types, and people can take those assessments, that's when we start to get hybrids and new ideas.
Yeah, I'm excited about where you're going. So I want to wrap this up by giving you about a minute, right? Can't take more than a minute because I think the judge is getting ready to come back in. But take about a minute, please, Jeff, and address the audience and talk to them about what you think is important. And I'm kind of putting you on the spot, and I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all. I love what the chief of staff said before, which is every airman an innovator. I think we need, for our national defense, for the security of our families and our children, We all need to be innovators. And in order to do that, we're going to have to accelerate the speed at which we're doing this. The Joint Chiefs now, or the Chief now, is exactly right. We have to be accelerator or we're going to lose. And that means that every airman has got to be better and new. They've got to take this seriously. This can't be something that you do in your spare time. It has to be endemic. It has to be ingrained into everything that you do. And how do we learn to do that? See one, do one, teach one. If you want to be an innovator, find somebody who's already successful. Apprentice yourself to that person. Once you become that innovator, right? Apprentice somebody else and eventually teach other people how to innovate. We're relying on every person being an airman. That's what I think the future of the Air Force, that's what the future I think all Americans have to have.
Wow. Fantastic. Now, I hope you're going to write a marriage book, because everything in business, this all applies to marriage too. And I just wanted to, say that I listened to you and I'm like, man, you can teach my wife and I a few things too. So, okay. So the judges are back. Dr. DeGraff, thank you for this Works on the Web, the special edition. I appreciate you very much. And we're going to bring the judges back in now. So please stay on stage, or we'll keep you on stage here in just a second. So, all right. So we're going to have General Hecker come back in, and General Hecker is going to be sharing with us some of the results and some of the thoughts that he has. So General Hecker, welcome back, and the stage is yours, sir.
Okay, great. Do we have all the people on there? Are all the teams on there? Okay, looks like we got the teams up and running now. So first of all, I'd like to thank all of you. I thought I really liked all of the presentations that you gave us, and actually I want to implement all three of them. Quite honestly. So I'm going to be looking to try to help everybody out here and see what we can do by getting all of these done. As we deliberated with the judges there, everyone's a winner, right? Just being here. Appreciate the 12 weeks, of you guys going through the course, and I think you guys stayed an extra couple of weeks working on this. But with us, we decided to go for the winner is presenter number one. So Jason, congratulations. Well done. And then is Bingo on there?
So he had to run to a meeting with the vice chief, so I took over.
Okay.
I finally get to talk.
Yeah, he basically had to ask if I would support him, and can you make sure that tell him that by all means I love to support him.
Yes, sir. We're happy to have you.
Okay, great. And I need to talk to him a little bit more too. And Trent Edwards has some ideas, and he can help him out with some of the issues that he's talking about with the business side of the things. So he's going to try to get in touch with Bingo, and then tell Bingo to get on my calendar so I can just talk to him for a little bit more, and we can have a more in-depth discussion.
Yes, sir. We'll do that.
As far as the AU fellow, I definitely want to do that for the JAD C2. We might, we'll get with me and we'll think how we're going to do it. We might just start off with 4 and just, make it happen, kind of thing. And we can do that maybe with the current fellows. Yeah, it's probably too late. So we'll probably have to wait till next year, but I definitely want to do that. So get with me, Brian, and we can talk through that. So anyways, thanks to all of you. I know that we had the Air Staff, AU, USAFA, some reserve folks, having that group of diverse people and making sure we get a blue and a green and a red and that kind of stuff, I know helps out with this. So thanks so much for everything. I like all the ideas, and we're going to try to implement all of them. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, General Hecker. Really appreciate you very much. All right. So we're going to bring in our director of MGM Works, Steve Warner, to the stage, and Steve's going to have some final comments before we close it out. Again, thank you very much to all the participants, and Steve, it's over to you.
Okay. Great. Thank you, General Hecker, for being here today, for sponsoring all of this. MGM Works is proud to have hosted this pitch day, showing the outstanding research and innovative ideas coming out of Air University. I want to thank our judges today and Dr. DeGraff for giving your time and perspectives, to the 3 presenters for their ideas and hard work, and of course, to our audience today. Hopefully what you've heard today can help you as you apply your ideas toward solving issues related to the ones you heard about today. MGM Works itself is part of a larger ecosystem of Defense Works innovation hubs, and we're all about making the connections of ideas and idea makers, bring them all together to solve the tough Air Force problems. And that's where you come in. I mean, we need all of you to engage with us in this mission. We need your ideas, and you can find us on the web to help share those, to learn what's going on. If you'll seek us out at MGMWorks, that's mgmwerx.org. You can sign up for our newsletter. We'll keep you updated on opportunities from across the DefenseWorks network so that you can participate, contribute, and profit from this exchange of ideas. Thank you again for being with us today. Have a great Air Force Day.